Hello, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I wanted to talk about ENTJs and I guess the issues that I would have with them. Again, much like the other videos that I've done on other types in terms of, I don't really understand this about you, no actual hate towards ENTJs. These videos I guess are supposed to be something that can, compare and contrast with, the lens at which we see typology, yada, yada, yada. Well, okay, here's mine. Now, ENTJs, I don't really understand why they're so, goal oriented and motivated because honestly, when I look at you guys, I see you as no different than me. At least in the sense that you're me except you're not. And ENTJs going out there, making results happen because when you have strong TE, it's very, yeah, you could say goal oriented, very how am I going to sort what I want in this outside world, essentially building a system, a plan, you know, and it helps that you guys strategize a lot because, that's where your NI comes in and all that stuff. But then at the end of it, I notice that ENTJs are still not even really satisfied with their lives because it all boils down to FI. And the reason why I would say that you guys are no different than us because, it's often more so stereotyped that INTPs are, we're the ones wasting our lives because maybe we just stay in the basement playing fucking video games all day, yada yada yada, and things like that, and we're not getting any actual experience, we're not engaging with society, everybody coming at us for our inferior FE and whatnot. But honestly, let's say okay, even a stereotypical INTP that enjoys playing video games all day, not really doing much, is not a productive member of society, so to speak. I see ENTJs still having the same mindset, but they don't really get flack for it just because they do things externally, which is, in this world, more important if you, I guess, do things in a certain way. But then again, I also think to myself, is it? Because I think, the one conflict that INTPs and ENTJs have with each other is, the big old philosophical debate, I guess. What is more important, an idea or its execution? And I guess if you talk about the whole golden pair thing, because INTPs and ENTJs were supposed to be, really good with each other, apparently, yeah, the way I see it, obviously ENTJs, let's say, want ideas from INTPs. They can make ideas from INTPs come to life better. But then again, if we weren't there, then what would you do? Hypothetically. So, it's a never ending discussion because I know as a compromise, a lot of people might say, oh, they're both equally important. Why are we even debating as to whether or not an idea or actually doing it is more important? But then again, I guess, okay, because I'm an INTP and I have that introverted thinking bias compared to extroverted thinking, I don't really see what the big deal is in terms of doing something out and about in the real world. Because what I've noticed about myself, and I think a lot of INTPs can even relate to this, is that the world will never be nothing more than what I think that I know. If I can't put it in my own words, then it's just blank and it's empty. I typically feel blank and empty all the time, honestly. And I think that's where Demon FI fits in. And ENTJs have fourth slot, inferior sort of FI. So when I analyze you guys, instead of let's say for me as an INTP, the world is nothing more than I think I know. For you guys, the world is nothing more than what you can do and accomplish. But then once you hit that, you start craving more and more and more. But then eventually you hit a brick wall. I think ideological wise, and that's why I think this fits INTPs more. When I keep thinking and thinking and thinking, I eventually hit a nihilistic brick wall and everything just looks empty and everything just looks hollow. And I'm just okay, this world is not really that big of a deal. But you guys, you constantly need to accomplish things. So you make goals and goals and goals, plans and plans and plans, all this kind of stuff. But you know what? I don't see you as any different than me, to be honest. I think even if you became king of the world, because the stereotypes that you guys get about I don't know, being CEO masterminds and all that sort of stuff, even if you were to hypothetically accomplish all those things, I think you guys would still not be as satisfied with life as compared to an INTP. And it's just easier for you guys to cover that up because, yes, in this society, making things happen is, inspirational, it's motivational, yada, yada, yada. But you know that within yourself, there is nothing there. That inferior FI that's within you, I see it. that you're not actually in touch with yourself like whatsoever. And that's like no different than me. But at least like I don't know, I feel like as an INTP, not talking about like other INTPs, but at least like me as an INTP, I feel like okay, I can just admit how hollow and like blank this world is. So I'm just like, what even is the point of like going out there accomplishing sort of like big goals? Because like at the end of it, you still remain in this like blank sort of like empty state as like a high like cognitive like T type. There's no like in a way true passion there like whatsoever. And yes, and I'll keep saying it, you as an ENTJ will not have to confront that more than like an INTP, I guess. Because the way I see it, as long as you guys have like the validation and like praise from like everybody else, as long as everybody else is seeing you as the winner in the competition in terms of I don't know, like making money in this capitalist society, or yeah, like whatever it is that like you like desire like super strong. Because at the end of it, you will still always remain where I've truly been at, which is that like there's no point. There's like okay, like what now? Because essentially, as an INTP, I feel like okay, when I hit that nihilistic brick wall, I keep asking myself at some point like, okay, what now? Like the world just looks like it's built on like a house of cards. But then you guys, I guess it's easier for you guys to like run away from this because okay, there's always things to do in the outside world, right? Yada, yada, yada. But then again, are you truly satisfied? Like, sure, on the outside, you're like, temporarily impressing other people because, oh, a lot of people wish they had that, like, extreme work ethic, yada, yada, yada. But, like, yeah, when I look at you guys, I'm just like, I still see a hollow, empty shell. I still see a hollow, empty shell just like me. So when you talk to a lot of us, because like when ENTJs like meet like a lot of like INTPs, it's like, oh, you guys are like fucking like wasted potential and all that kind of stuff. Like I can imagine a lot of you saying that to us. But then again, I'm also thinking like, okay, so what? Like you're this like super productive person, yada yada yada, but it's like you still constantly need more. And I think essentially, okay, because there's a stereotype that like ENTJs fit for like the capitalist agenda because oh, it's all about winning, it's all about dominating, yada yada yada. I think what perpetuates, like I'm not even gonna cap, like I think what perpetuates the saying that money doesn't buy happiness comes from like a lot of you honestly, because oh, you win, and you win, but still you can't buy anything to fulfill that like emptiness like within yourself. So I guess I never paid any mind to it, honestly. But like, okay, honestly, but when I think of money doesn't buy happiness, I think about a lot of you. I think about a lot of you, honestly. Because what, you're trying to chase dough, you're trying to chase this. Like, okay, whatever. But then, so what? We all die, right? And I think, honestly, okay, now there's debate, I guess, as to whether or not Patrick Bateman is like, I think, yeah, like whether like an INTJ or like an ENTJ. But I think ENTJ actually like sort of like fits him better. And I think because there's the idea that like, oh, he's the Sigma male, whatever, blah, 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 this and that. Like a lot of ENTJ guys essentially want to be alpha, whatever, all that kind of stuff. Or at least like they try to project that sort of like image, whether they'll outright say that what they're trying to be is like alpha or some sigma or whatever, like sort of like bullshit like that. Look, okay, when I encounter a lot of you, bro, I literally just think like Patrick Bateman though. Like you can be extremely successful, but then like, like at the end of it, it's always just like what, I simply am not there, kind of like what he says. And I completely understand that. Despite like not being somebody who's necessarily like such a go-getter sort of like person. I bet a lot of you enjoy that movie because it's a cathartic release when you see this man, Patrick Bateman, like breaking within his like psyche because, oh, he knows the right things to say. He knows how to make himself look good with like his like morning routine or some shit like that. And oh, he's winning in corporate. But okay, I haven't actually seen the movie in a while, but like, I'm pretty sure you can more or less fill in the blank like what I'm trying to say here. But then his psyche still gets like fragmented because there's a battle between winning so hard over there but like not like being content with like anything in here. And like, okay, we're essentially like the reverse and we still have like the same issues with like INTPs though, because of like, let's say like inferior FE, it's harder to get out there because we want to comfortably like remain in here. But then when I look at like ENTJs, I feel like in a sense you guys still have more of like a mental load because you have more of a proclivity to want to do things like out there. And yet because the only person you can truly be with is yourself and like your inner world. And I understand that really well as like an INTP, or just let's just say like an introverted like type in like general. It's like, okay, yeah, I can see why your psyche would want to break, and then you end up hypothetically like Patrick Bateman. I know that's like very stereotypical. I'm not saying that like all of you are like off your like rockers or like anything like that. But I bet like, okay, I'm sticking to like what I'm saying though. I bet a lot of what's in that movie is cathartic release for like a lot of you. Because sure, I'm sure a lot of you are like rational enough to like, let's say not commit murder, end up in prison, whatever, yada yada yada. So it's just like watching this piece of like art, and I guess seeing the distortion between succeeding versus how you actually interpret events. And I think like, okay, honestly, I think that's what like fits the movie like really well. And I like I've said, I haven't actually seen it like in a while, but I feel like, I mean, it's dramatic because it's like a movie, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, I'm not saying it's like literally you, but I think like, at least from like a mental perspective, I think that's what it truly is to like be an ENTJ, honestly. Because this movie has been discussed about for like, who the fuck knows like how long. And it's like, there's still so many interpretations over like, okay, what do we know really happened? Yada, yada, yada. So I'm just like, as an ENTJ, do you really know what like really happened? Because you won. But what is it more than quote unquote that like you won or something? How did that process? Did it really process? I don't know. I mean, spitballing thoughts here. Yeah, again, like no actual hate. I could see a lot of ENTJs telling INTPs to, like quit chasing instant gratification. But I mean, I think we both know how minuscule the joy in this world actually is. So we might as well just cut to the chase. And yeah, that's my third SI talking, but there you go.